Joining me on the line is the Republican Senate Majority Leader, John Thune. Senator Thune, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Always good to be with you.
So let's talk about the latest on the government shutdown. Democrats seem to have shown very little sign that they are interested in caving. You have a few Democrats who are sort of moderates on the other side who have talked about the necessity to get past the government shutdown, Senator Fetterman being the most obvious. Where do you think we are at this point?
Well, we'll find out. I mean, I think right now we've got a vote later this evening to open up the government again. This will be the 12th. I assume the Democrats will vote it down again. Tomorrow, we're going to give them a different something else to vote on. We gave them a defense appropriations bill to vote on last week, which would have funded the troops, and they block voted against that. This one tomorrow is a Ron Johnson bill, which essentially what it does, Ben, is it basically just pays everybody who's working. So anybody in the federal workforce, furloughed employees will obviously get back pay, but anybody today who is working in any government agency would get paid. And I don't know what they're going to do, but as you suggest, right now it looks like they're sort of digging in, and I'm not sure why. I think this is a real losing hand for them to play. It's certainly costing people all over the country big time, particularly federal employees. And the longer this thing drags on, the worse it gets. But they, at this point, at least right now, don't seem prepared to want to come to their senses and actually do the right thing for the American people, which is to keep the government open.
Yeah, Senator Thune, they've talked a lot about the idea that what they're trying to do here is lower the cost curve on healthcare, that premiums are too high. What they really mean by that, I assume, is that they want to continue to subsidize Obamacare at essentially pandemic levels, despite the fact that the pandemic has been over for several years at this point. Isn't this also sort of a tacit admission that Obamacare didn't do its job? We were told that Obamacare was going to radically bend the cost curve and bring down the cost of premiums. And here you have Democrats openly acknowledging that absent a gigantic infusion of more government subsidy from the federal level, the premiums are too high.
Right. And they created this crisis, this COVID cliff, if you will, and these enhanced subsidies, which did go into effect, as you point out, during the pandemic. It was supposed to be a response to that. The pandemic's long over. They created the expiration date. So this is really a problem of their own making. But the broader point is the right one, and that is that everything that Obamacare has done, including these enhanced subsidies, has added to the cost of insurance policies. In fact, if you look from 2013 to 2025 to where we are today, insurance rates in the exchanges, the Obamacare exchanges, have gone up about 221%, if you can believe that. And so it's done nothing but inflate the cost that people are paying for health insurance across this country. And that's because the fundamental program is flawed. And then the enhanced subsidies were flawed too. They didn't have an income limit. So you got people that are making $500,000, $600,000 a year who qualify. They have zero premium policies. So people don't even know they're covered. Insurance companies are incentivized to auto enroll people. And so it's become a money maker, just a factory for insurance companies to make money, because there are a lot of people out there that they enroll who don't even know they have coverage. And so you've got this flawed structure with no incentive to constrain costs. And as a consequence, you've got just the costs going up astronomical rates every year. So it's their problem. They created it. Now they're expecting Republicans to try and solve it for them. And that's their price for opening up the federal government. And it's a price that is a very stiff one, because you're looking at, to do it the way they want to do it, it's about $400 billion.
Now, Senator Thune, Senator Fetterman has suggested that actually the filibuster ought to be nuked, which is, I think, unique. I've never seen a situation in which a member of the opposition party calls for the majority party to nuke the filibuster in order to get something done. Obviously, you have reservations about doing that. Every time the filibuster has been nuked in the past, it has led to a new precedent, which is that it no longer exists for those types of scenarios. That's obviously been true when Democrats nuked the filibuster for judicial nominees. That led to the Republicans being able to actually get onto the Supreme Court a bunch of nominees they otherwise might not have been able to get through. Why do you think it's important to maintain the filibuster in cases like this?
Well, I think that legislative, and by the way, the executive calendar, which is different, so that's judges, all the executive branch nominees are on the executive calendar. And we did change the rules. We changed the rules most recently here just about 6 weeks ago on nominees, Trump executive branch nominees that Democrats had just completely filibustered and shut that process down. So we opened it up. The legislative filibuster is designed to protect the voice of the minority in this country, and it's been used effectively for a long time to do just that. And it's prevented a lot of bad things from happening. Republicans have used it in the past. And, most recently, the Democrats tried to get rid of the filibuster for what they called their elections reform bill, which basically was consolidating all of elections in Washington, D.C. It would have, taken power to regulate elections away from the states, would have done away with voter ID, And had it not been for Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, they would have succeeded in doing it at that time. They voted against it. But the Democrats have made it, clear they would love to get rid of the filibuster to enact their agenda, which includes, statehood for Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., an expanded Supreme Court up to 15 seats there, abortion on demand. As I said, federalizing our election system. Those are just a few of the list of horribles that they put out there. And they all campaigned on that. But if we tried to do it now, all 47 of them, I can guarantee you, would block vote against it. So it's situational for them. It's all about political power. And, now that they are on the outside, they're going to use this to their advantage. I just think that we ought to be able to do this the old-fashioned way, and that is open up the government by just having 5 more Democrats vote with us. And that's all it's going to take. So we shouldn't be in this. Everything is harder than it should be right now because of Trump derangement syndrome. But I still think at some point there are going to be some rank and file Democrats who break with their leadership and do the right thing for the country, and that is open up the government.
Senator, one of the other things is that you've been busy actually getting President Trump's nominees through. There was a lot of heartburn about the inability to get nominees through. You have been getting an enormous number of executive branch nominees through judicial nominees. You've been getting through. Well, can you give us an update on the nomination schedule, what's been going on there?
Right. We cleared the backlog. The Democrats had completely shut it down. I mean, we were forced to be here. We've been here more days, more hours, cast more votes than any Senate in history, at least in the last 40 years, as a result of the Democrats' obstruction. And so we did make a change in the rules that enables us to start processing some of the executive branch nominations in batches, and that's enabled us to catch up. So, but there are more coming. And on the judiciary side, we're doing some this week. We're going to do a circuit court at the end of the week. Now we're doing district court judges. We had about 50 of those that were in the backlog, and we still have to do those the old-fashioned way. We can't do those in batches. But as you know, the judiciary is an enormously important part of what we do here, and we want to make sure that we are filling those positions with people who are constitutionalists, who understand that the role of a judge is not to write the laws, but to interpret and apply them. And so those are the kinds of judges that we're looking for, and it's going to be really important for us to continue to fill the judiciary and the executive branch, President Trump's nominees to the executive branch, to be able to implement the agenda that he ran on and that the American people voted for.
Now, Senator Thune, meanwhile, the Trump administration obviously very active on the foreign policy front. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, the Trump administration has made some extraordinary moves in the Middle East, particularly with regard to Israel and freeing Israeli hostages from the tender mercies of Hamas, trying to unite the rest of the world around extirpating Hamas in the Gaza Strip. I had the privilege of actually being in the Knesset when President Trump made his speech at the invitation of Ambassador Huckabee. Now, what do you make of what the Trump administration has been doing in the Middle East? What do you think is the future of the Gaza Strip right now?
Right. Well, and I saw some of your coverage from over there, which I thought was great, Ben, and I just think that it is remarkable what the president has accomplished here and what his team has accomplished, and it builds on the success of the Abraham Accords. Obviously, we're far from, being in a state where we can declare total victory because Hamas is still active, and in my view, they need to be completely obliterated or at least disarmed so that they are not a factor in governing the Gaza Strip. So there's still work to be done, but the way in which this administration has worked with the Israelis, with our Arab allies in the region, to bring about an outcome that I think nobody thought achievable just a few weeks ago, and that is getting these hostages released. And then, now obviously the hard part begins, and trying to come up with a security force to maintain security there and figure out what the next step is in order to make that a place in the world that people want to visit, that enjoys some of the success and prosperity that folks in the neighborhood have. I think there is some tremendous opportunities there. Wouldn't have been possible had it not been for President Trump and his leadership. And so congratulations to him, but we still have a lot of work to do. And Prime Minister Netanyahu and our president working together with our allies in the region, hopefully will continue to stabilize that area and make it a place that's attractive for people to live and work and invest.
And Senator Thune, once the government shutdown ends, and I have to assume that at some point in the future it will end, we won't be here a year from now with the government shutdown continuing, I would assume. Once it ends, what are the legislative priorities for you and for the rest of the Republican caucus?
Well, obviously, funding the government the old-fashioned way through the appropriations process. This is a short-term funding resolution that buys us some time, but we need to do the full year. But I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. There are things like permitting reform. There are things like AI, which has become a very, very big issue in our lives. We got to do a farm bill. We've got to do a highway, a transportation bill. There's a lot of work for Congress to do that has been put on kind of on the back burner while the government's been shut down. But, the most important thing that we do is, take care and make sure that we protect the country. I always tell people, if you don't get national security right, the rest is conversation. So we did get the defense authorization bill across the finish line in the Senate. We tried, as I said earlier, to put the defense appropriations bill on the floor, which funds all those priorities, and the Democrats blocked it. But taking care of America's national security interests in what is a very dangerous world is going to continue to be a big priority for us. And then, like I said, there are lots of other legislative priorities that I think, and there are some areas where we can work together. There's some things that we can do in a bipartisan way with Democrats, but we've got to get past this government shutdown and the Democrats holding the federal employees hostage, basically, if you will, to try and get a bunch of unrelated policy things that they want to get done. And I said I'm perfectly happy to have the conversation and talk with them about some of those things, but we can't do that while the government's being held hostage.
Well, Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Senator, really appreciate your time and your hard work on all of the aforementioned topics. Thanks so much for your time.
Good to be with you. Thanks, Ben. Talk to you soon.